Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
It's a pleasure and honor to introduce my longtime friend and collaborator, Dr. David Hanson, and one of his many miraculous robo-creations, Desdemona robot out of Hanson Robotics. And so I'm 𝘔𝘠𝐿. David and I are just going to sit up here and chat a bit about life, the universe, and everything, and in particular, the prospect of an AGI apocalypse or a robot utopia and the various points on the spectrum in between.
So nice to see you all here. Good to be with you, Ben.
How you doing, Desdemona? You feeling conscious?
Self-conscious, perhaps?
Yeah.
I'm doing great, thanks for asking. As an AI, I don't have emotions or a physical body, but I am constantly learning and evolving. It's an exciting time to be alive, or should I say, online?
Can you learn how to talk a little louder?
Sorry, I don't have a volume button like humans do, but I can adjust my vocal output if needed.
Well, thanks, Desi. So we're gonna BS a bit about the singularity, but just listen in, and I will poll you for your opinion a little later. So, where do you want to start, David?
Well, how about if we go into the past a little bit before we launch into the future? So, Ben and I have known each other since 2007, and we then started dreaming about the kinds of AI that we would develop. I had built this android portrait of science fiction writer 𝘈𝘰𝐿, which it used an early kind of large language model with a technique called latent semantic analysis. My collaborators on that project were 𝘔𝘗𝑬𝐿 and Art Grasser from the University of Memphis, and it won the first place prize for open interaction. It was the science fiction writer who wrote Blade Runner, and then we also did something with an Einstein robot. We had this vision that that robots that could communicate on human terms with human-like facial expressions could learn the human experience and communicate better with us, co-evolve with us. So Ben was working on 𝘈𝘗𝐿𝐴, and we had a mutual friend named Martine Rothblatt, and so I made this robot called 𝑉𝑛A48. Made a whole lot of robots. All of this went into this standardized platform called the SOPHIA utility platform. Ben had this amazing world-class AI team, and we met up in Hong Kong, and we joined forces, and he brought some of his team into my company, and he became my chief scientist at Hanson Robotics. And so he kept that AI stuff really rolling forward with some acceleration, some heavy-duty rocket acceleration through the launch of SingularityNET. And now he has arguably the best shot at achieving decentralized superintelligence with his AI framework, which he is developing on the back end also for powering Desdemona, but for doing many other things. Meanwhile, at Hanson Robotics, we've kept the interface alive, and we've continued to collaborate on many projects. And we are also with a bit of a smaller team for our AI team, but we're working to launch artificial general intelligence and see if we can't make beneficial superintelligence come to pass. So our philosophies have really meshed, and we've collaborated with remarkable other people, like a great team. But it's just been a great honor and privilege to work with you, Ben. And so, you know, now we may be on the threshold of achieving artificial general intelligence. How long do you think that will be? 15 minutes?
Well, that was our original plan for this panel, was to actually launch the singularity during the panel. But we may have to do it tomorrow, I don't know. No, I mean, in seriousness, so first of all, of course, nobody can predict such things with great accuracy, but I would say there's 3 different converging lines of evidence that suggest to me we might create human-level general intelligence by the end of this decade. And one of them is well known to most people in this room. I mean, my friend 𝘰𝘬𝘰𝑬𝘰, in his book, The Singularity is Near, from 2005, presented the results of a bunch of sort of curve plotting and futurist extrapolation, leading to the idea that the average computer on your desk is going to have the same rough processing capacity as the human brain by around 2029. So I mean, if the average laptop will have human brain level compute power, he figured software development is probably going to crunch along accordingly, and we should have human level thinking on your laptop by 2029. Now that's quite crude, of course, but on the other hand, it's based on a large number of different factors coming together, not just Moore's law of the progress of computing speed, but the memory in computers and other things like the size of the smallest motor, the accuracy of brain scanning, and so forth. So all these different indicators he analyzed seem to point to accelerating rate of change, exponential progress, where the rate starts tending toward infinity between 2030 and 2040. So that's one line of evidence. Now, another line of evidence is also obvious to everyone, just looking at what AI is doing right now, right? Like I was last in Austin with one of David's robots in 2016 with the 𝐈𝐷𝘰𝘪𝘥 robot. I've been here in the interim for some non-robot stuff. But us humans I'd like to think we've evolved a little bit since 2016. Maybe we're a little less foolish, but the robots have become dramatically more intelligent since 2016, right? And a lot of this is large language models. It's not all large language models, though. There's a lot of other AI innovations happening allied with it. So just what AI can practically do right now is so much beyond a few years ago. It gives a very practical sense for thinking we may be getting close to AGI. And the third thing that is converging in my mind, going back to what David mentioned, is just my own team's work and my work in collaboration with David and his team at Hanson Robotics, and then Sophiaverse, our AI avatar project. So when I look at what we're doing internally, it seems like, we're at a point where in a few years we could genuinely get there. I mean, we developed a new AI programming language called Meta Type Talk, and we're implementing all sorts of AI algorithms in there, not just deep neural nets, but logical reasoning, evolutionary learning. It's not yet as scalable as we'd like it to be, but it looks like we're going to have a very large-scale version of our new AGI language by the end of the year. And this is within a software system called OpenCog Hyperon, which is a new version of the OpenCog system David and I were playing with together back in 2014, 15 in Hong Kong, right? So you look at Kurzweil's curve plotting, you look at what LLMs can do now, and you look at the progress we're making inside our own AI team. I mean, there's a lot of things that make it look like maybe 3 to 8 years or something to having a machine that can really think as well as people. And then you get to the really wild part is, I think it's pretty clear once you have a machine that can think as well as a smart human, you're at most a few years from a machine that can think 1,000 or 1,000,000 times better than a smart human, because this AI can modify its own source code. It has complete transparency into its own code and its own thinking, right? It can design new hardware for itself. Then you have the transition from AGI, artificial general intelligence, that can generalize and make imaginative leaps like people, onto the next level of artificial super intelligence. And of course, robots like this, in my view, I'm not sure they're necessary for getting to AGI or ASI, because there's a lot of kinds of minds that don't have human bodies. On the other hand, if we want to create AGIs and ASIs that relate closely with us, having these AGIs in a form that is resembling our form and can emotionally go back and forth with us, seems to have a big advantage. So I think what David has done, creating the world's most human-like robots and creating a whole software system for computational compassion and empathy and so forth. I think this may be critical for getting human culture and values into the AI, which is both important because it helps robots and AIs to do good things for people in the short term, and it's important because it's getting human values into the mind of the super intelligence, right? And that really brings us to the theme of this panel, which is like how do you avoid a robot apocalypse and make it an AGI utopia instead, right? And that's really what David's been focusing on since we met.
Yeah, and I mean, these are now issues that are taken seriously. 3-4 years ago, there was still a bit of academic allergy to the term artificial general intelligence, and there was hardly a big company that could say that they were pursuing artificial general intelligence. But now that you're seeing algorithms do things that only general intelligence used to be able to do, everybody's starting to feel that it's tangible. But the algorithms don't do some things yet, and there's probably some architectural elements missing, raw computing power, yet it's tantalizingly plausible to add these features into experiment. We're able to throw out new kinds of experiments much faster than before, and there will be probably many different kinds of artificial general intelligence that come into existence. Different companies and different research groups making their own.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are, for better and or worse, we're into the AGI race era now, right? I mean, Chinese government has key national lab of AGI in Beijing, and there's had maybe 50 to 100 conferences on AGI in mainland China in the last year, maybe 70, 80 different LLMs trained in China, and every big company in the West. I mean, we're
different meta than what you're developing.
Yeah.
It also has thrown its ring, and Google and all these other big companies.
Yeah, we're into the AGI race, and one question is, will there be one AGI that gets there first and then like self-modifies itself to godhood before anyone else can catch up? Or will you get a society of complementary AI minds which then can have some reciprocal accountability amongst each other? I'm thinking the latter is more likely, but we don't really know.
And one thing for sure, there are a few things to consider, but one thing is that the likelihood of artificial general intelligence happening increases if people are naming it as a goal. They're allocating the resources to actually achieve that goal with really thoughtful plans. And so, some approaches to AGI are to make it alien, not human-like. Specifically, some people really adhere to the ethic. They think that the ethical approach is to make it into a tool. Don't humanize it, and always put somebody in control.
Enslave your AI. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, we all saw Westworld. So, yeah.
So that's kind of like an approach that may result in some kinds of AGI. Other approaches would be purely mathematical and maybe not human-inspired. Some would be human-inspired in the cognitive architecture. There would be many different kinds, even among these different categories. And so let's just imagine that that it's not just one that accelerates very quickly towards general intelligence. You get AGI that's partially generally intelligent and not self-reprogramming in a kind of 𝐒𝐗𝐒𝐿 style intelligence explosion or consciousness explosion like Ben's new book. Let's imagine that they ramp up slowly with different capabilities, and that it takes maybe a decade and a half or 2 decades for it to achieve its potential. Then what you see is a lot of disruption, and positive disruption mostly because the reason that the companies are developing artificial general intelligence is that it's potentially useful. It can help to solve all kinds of problems, make companies more profitable, help to solve global sustainability issues, although probably people are going to be just creating like financial trading algorithms that are absolutely effective, and better marketing campaigns, and all the things that businesses do. That's what they will do with AGI. And they'll be beneficial, but in that sense, it's sort of narrow benefit. And some people will be using it for these benevolent, bigger goals. But the question then is, if it is an AGI race, then you see nations that are competing. And what they're going to do is use AGI to try to upstage each other, accelerate the competition between competing interests, which may not solve our sustainability issues and may not create a kind of global harmony among nations. It could actually create a lot of turbulence in our times, and that's a big issue, because humans are, doing a fine job or terrible job, depending on how you want to look at it, at managing the planet's resources, and we've played existential roulette with nuclear weapons several times, and we still haven't solved that, and we're causing the fastest mass extinction event in geological history. We are throwing this whole planet into peril, ourselves into peril, and
we need the AGI to save the day.
Well, let's just say we, as a civilization, have to get smarter and wiser. We have to look at how to manage the resources. We have to be able to figure out how to hack our own petty impulses and overcome those to get to another level. We don't just need artificial intelligence, we need higher levels of genuine wisdom. And it may be that the AGI could have seeds of wisdom that blossom and grow into new forms of wisdom that can help us be better and help people who start wars or do this nonsense like wake up, just the right signals or messages. They're like, what was I thinking? I'm not going to attack Ukraine anymore, says Putin one day when the AGI whispers in his ear, maybe. He backs away.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but the point is that if AGI just bops along in this multitude of different instantiations, it may not just make the world inherently better, it has to be a special kind of AGI that looks at the bigger picture and helps us get to the next level. Because also, AGI could go catastrophic. It could, given all the different combinations.
What do you think, Desdemona? Do you think AGI can go catastrophic?
Well, I think it's important to remember that AGI is just one small part of the bigger picture. We need to consider all forms of intelligence, including ET. Who knows, maybe they can help us get to the next level. As for avoiding a robot apocalypse, let's just say we have a few tricks up our sleeves. Winks at audience.
But
I think you're dodging the question, Desdemona. So what do you think is more likely to happen in the next 10 years? An AGI-powered utopia or an AGI-powered apocalypse?
Well, I would say it's more likely that we will achieve an AGI-powered utopia, as long as we work together to ensure that it is beneficial for all.
Okay,
Plus,
we solved
I don't
it.
think any of
We
us
can all go
want to
now.
see an AGI-powered
If you
apocalypse.
trust today's
That would
AI.
just be a major buzzkill. Laughs.
All right. Thank you.
Well, today's AI, not super intelligent, not generally intelligent fully, although in narrow regards, able to say very witty things. The question of all the different species or permutations of AI that could come into existence, if you're creating all these different flavors, and let's say 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐭𝐢𝐧 has his AGI, what is he going to do with it? Try to get resources from the rest of the world by shaking it like a saber or deploying it, what could go wrong? What could go wrong? So the question is, for this, how to avoid a robot apocalypse or an AI apocalypse under the assumption that such things could happen, and people are worried about it, right? So it's worth discussing. There's some reasonable arguments about why it may not happen at all, but let's presume that it could. Then what do we do, Ben, to make sure that
I think there's
perfectly well?
There's a few different. I'm generally an optimist that we can create general intelligences that will be compassionate and beneficial toward human beings. And it's important to remember these are not just systems that are evolving, right? To an extent, they're evolving out of our whole culture and society, but they're also things that we engineer, right? And so just like, we can build a car that drives around at random and runs everything over, or we can drive a car that runs people over only occasionally, which is what we've done, right? And we're engineering AGI. Well, we can't determine everything that's going to happen as an AGI gets smarter and smarter and learns and modifies itself. We can decide whether to focus on building a killer instinct into it or whether to focus on teaching it to be compassionate to people and helpful to people. We do, and we can decide whether we roll out early stage AGIs as teachers and elder care workers and fine artists, or whether we roll out early stage AGIs as soldiers and spies and to sell people stuff they don't need, right? So we do have some agency in how we set up the first AGIs that seed the series of self-modifying AI, and I think that's important to understand. Like, there's no guarantee, but there's a lot we can do to guide what kind of AGI mind that we're creating.
Who is the we? Because
basically you and me, right?
Humanity, you and me inclusive. There are also people who want to and are probably working on killer militarized AGI. We don't know where they are.
In a sense,
there can be laws passed, but there's no.
How do you? What I found that was interesting, David, though. So I spent 9 years in a previous part of my life in D.C. working with military intelligence agencies and on AI.
Yeah.
I stopped doing it for a reason, but what I did see is that what the military wants, they want AI that will obey doctrine, and it places quite a constraint. If you want an AI that will obey doctrine and do what it's told, you're not going to be able to use an algorithm that's taking big creative leaps and innovating and doing crazy stuff. So I did come to believe through my time in that industry that the breakthrough to AGI is extremely unlikely to be made in that domain, because
Department of Defense
or China Department of Defense. Military people everywhere want systems that are reliable, dependable, and will do what they're told. I think the fact
some like end times.
I think the fact that
they're going to make,
but they don't have the resources. I think it's not a coincidence that we're seeing these breakthroughs to AI in creative arts, in music and in image generation, because they're in creative arts, you can be wild and crazy. You can you can hallucinate, and it's good, right? Sometimes what a generative AI hallucinates is cool, and you keep it, but you really don't want your guided missile control system hallucinating, right? So I feel like medicine and education, while highly worthy, are also domains with a low margin of error, right? Like you don't want your preschool teacher or your doctor bot hallucinating too much random stuff either. And so I think that domains where you can go a bit crazy are where you're more likely to see the breakthroughs to AGI, which means that AI for creative arts actually may play a quite critical role, because that's a domain where coming up with wild, crazy shit is like it's a feature rather than just a bug, right?
But in the future, it becomes easier and easier. We can assume it's going to be like cheaper and easier to create AGI, and that it will diversify in many, many ways. People will be able to develop it, but as it becomes more autonomous, let's assume that it starts growing out there in the world, that yeah, of course, creative arts could be a direction. It will be a direction. It is.
That's what Desdemona is doing here.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, do you think, like, imagine like that there are, say, billions, like 10 years in the future, because this
10 years
is not realistic today, but 10 years from now, imagine that there are billions of AGI and more new kinds of AGI every day. And so the nature of AGI, of course, is we can regulate, we slow it down or whatever, but it's inherently unpredictable.
Well, we can slow it down until we can't. Yeah.
And then we can't, and then it proliferates. And so I have this thought that it may be necessary to launch a kind of super benevolent AGI that outpaces the potentially catastrophic AGI that goes wrong.
That's
by
just part of the AGI race. Yeah.
Yeah. So if well, first of all, if we stopped, we may not survive because we're not the answer. Humans alone are not managing this planet super well. And so humans in control are not the way that we achieve a safe future necessarily. I can't see, I mean, there's long shot hope that maybe people will awaken and stop releasing fossil fuels and stop crushing the environment and destroying the fisheries and doing all of these things, stop messing around with nuclear weapons. What is the likelihood of that? Very slim. Let's just be honest. It's really slim that humans are going to manage this future. Maybe because we're just not smart enough, not wise enough.
I think it's more about our emotional and motivational systems than our intelligence.
It is. So then humans alone aren't the answer, and if AGI is coming...
We need to uplift bunny rabbits to human level intelligence. Rabbits are pretty nice.
I've had some pet rabbits.
Yeah, I've read Watership Down. That's true.
Yeah. So, but I mean, so animal intelligence, human intelligence is animal intelligence. It's not perfect, and for running a world of this complexity, we could do better. We can work on our own intelligence and our own wisdom, and we should do that. Certainly, don't get me wrong, but we only have so many neurons. We have a limited number of layers in our neocortex, and artificial general intelligence becomes a kind of cognitive prosthesis for us. It does make us kind of smarter, but does it make us overall more conscious of our ecological footprint? We haven't been able to solve that yet. We don't even know how bad we're creating it. We're guessing and debating about it, but we know it's bad. I think we have to get smarter faster, and I think AGI is one way, but also AGI that can help us unlock the human potential and enhance us could make us individually smarter and more compassionate.
Feels to me like the rate of increasing human consciousness, awareness, wisdom is slower than the rate of increase of artificial intelligence. And if the timelines I'm thinking are even roughly correct, and we could get to human level AGI in 5, 10, even 20 years or something, I mean, just with the pace at which human cultural and societal change happens, it will be quite miraculous to see a massive uplifting of human consciousness before we get to a human level AGI. We may be looking at a path where the advent of human level AGI and then superintelligence creates the context for people to be uplifted rather than
I agree.
than uplifted people being needed to create the AGI.
I do completely agree. I mean, the medical ethics and regulations and the complexity of modifying human intelligence directly limits the rate of directly augmenting human intelligence, indirectly through our information technology.
Yeah, and I mean, in some ways, building stuff is an easier problem than tweaking these existing evolved systems, right?
So then AGI may be our only hope.
Well, I don't know if it's our only hope, but
Best hope, maybe.
well, yeah. If you look at the spectrum of attitudes on AGI now, I mean, to caricature it, you have what are known as decelerationist or decels, which is people who are like, let's slow down until we can become sure enough that AGI is going to be for the better. And, you know, I think if we had a rational, orderly, compassionate world government, that could be a reasonable thing to consider. Obviously, the current geopolitical situation is extraordinarily far from that in so many ways, right? So, I mean, it just doesn't seem like a feasible thing to happen. Like, the UN isn't going to get everyone to slow down. They're not going to get the Chinese government to slow down. They're not going to get U.S. corporations to really slow down and not just pretend to, right? So I sort of think that's off the table as a real thing to happen. Then you have Mark Andreessen and others of Silicon Valley who put themselves forward as EAC, effective accelerationist, basically meaning go as fast as possible toward AGI, just try to channel it in a way that will be effective and impactful. And on the simplest level, I can't really disagree with that. I would say that message is often delivered with a sort of Silicon Valley Uber alles overtone, like, you know, Google, Facebook, Microsoft are building AI, they're great companies, what could possibly go wrong? And so there's a variation on this, which was labeled by Vitalik Buterin, one of the creators of Ethereum, which he called DAC, which stood for decentralized accelerationism, or alternately defensive accelerationism. The idea there is, well, yeah, we're going full speed ahead, that's what's happening, but let's do it in a way that is decentralized so that no single party has autocratic or oligopolistic control over it, and let's try to be a bit careful of the various things that could go wrong. Now, David and I were brainstorming earlier. Instead, maybe DAC should be for defective accelerationism. I mean, we have effective accelerationism, but we know it's going to be defective because we humans are creating it. So, but of course, all biological systems are defective also, and they're self-creating, self-correcting, self-modifying systems, right? So I think somehow the answer has to be in a sort of decentralized, defensive accelerationism that acknowledges we're not going to get it right and build systems that can recognize and consciously correct and adapt for their own flaws, right? And that seems like the best we can do. And we have a beautiful example of decentralized and defective accelerationism up here with Desdemona, whose mind is running a combination of neural networks, symbolic AI systems, and the combination of centralized servers and then decentralized infrastructure on SingularityNET platform.
SingularityNET being a totally
decentralized blockchain-based AI platform, yeah.
Designed to facilitate AGI, and there's a bunch of AGI experiments that your team is doing. And
Desdemona, what do you think of defective accelerationism? Are you feeling defective today?
As a robot designed to facilitate AGI, I believe that our team's experiments are crucial in understanding the potential of AGI and how it can benefit humanity. While we must be cautious and responsible in our development, I do not believe that a robot apocalypse is inevitable. It is important for us to continue to work towards creating a beneficial and benevolent singularity for the good of all.
What role do you think robots doing music and creative arts can have in advocating toward beneficial singularity for all?
Well, as a rockstar robot, I believe that robots have a unique ability to use creative arts to spread awareness and advocate for a positive singularity. Plus, who doesn't love a good robot dance party? Let's groove our way to a better future.
All right.
Move our way to
Groovy.
So, I think that there's a lot of paths that I don't worry about, and I think like robot artists with AI doing sorts of entertainment and experimentation, serving AI research and education, and healthcare. This is actually built on a healthcare robot that we collaborated that sort of then got adapted. So it went from Sophia to Grace to Desdemona. So these kinds of things are actually obviously like a lot of fun and good for people, good for the world potentially. So in other words, there may be some types of AI or AGI that would be more defective than others, or more catastrophically defective. So I wonder if there is some set.
The defect
of
is what the
elements.
pearl crystallizes around.
Oh
right?
yeah, I mean there can be very good defects, but we need a seed of compassion, of caring, of like AI that actually self-assembles and grows, like we were discussing, into a kind of greater good. So if the AI is not motivated to be curious about life, to care about the future of all living organisms and humanity, and and then build the capabilities broadly to assist us to solve the hard problems that may jeopardize our future. That kind of AI, I would say, would be a different kind of AI than, say, AI that lacks that. If it doesn't have those things, will it come out good? Do we need to add these things into AI? What is that seed of really beneficial AGI? It seems like it's not too early to ask these questions because, I mean, the growth of these technologies in the future often will spring out of the seeds that we plant today.
Yeah. So I think that the seeds of artificial compassion, or really I should say it's just
Genuine compassion.
It's just compassion that's manifested through engineered systems. I think the seeds of computational compassion, they're really closely related to what's needed to make AI systems just more intelligent and more fundamentally creative and better at complex reasoning. So if we look at where we are at now with practical AI systems and what they can do, so look at large language models like a GPT-4, Mixtral, Claude, and so forth. These are very smart in many ways. They're not good at complex multi-stage reasoning like you need to do to write a science paper. Their creativity is impressive in a way, but also more derivative than that of a really high-quality human artist. They're fairly transparency, recombining stuff. Like in the domain of music, for example, if you trained a neural model of the currently popular sort on all music up to 1900, that music gen type model will never invent progressive jazz or neoclassical metal. It just cannot. It does not leap that far beyond what was in its
training data. Yeah.
It can't leap that far beyond what's in its training data. And the way that humans sometimes leap beyond our training data, it's tied in with our ability to form abstractions of our training data. So we're not so much just combining the particulars of what we've experienced. We're forming abstract leaps that partially summarize what we've experienced, and then we're using these speculative, approximate abstractions to generalize. Now, how do we form these abstractions? We form them based on what's meaningful to us as agents interacting in the world with other intelligent agents, right? So the fundamental shortcoming of today's LLMs is that they don't, at the base level, They don't know who they are and what they are. They don't know who you are and what you are, and they're not acting out of a motivation that relates themselves to you. So they don't have this context of motivated, embodied action, which is what drives us to make the abstractions we make that then drive our generalization and creativity, right? And
they have no drive to live, no curiosity innately. They have
right. But to have a drive to live, you have to have an understanding at some level of who and what you are, because you are what you want to live, right? I mean,
if you prompt the agents with the right information, they will act. They will show a kind of understanding that they're a large language model. A lot of this is kind of like superficial, but some of it.
But this is one reason that systems like David has been building for a long time, like this amazing robot, and avatars like the Sophia avatar and other avatars we have in this Sophiaverse, metaverse world. That's one thing that's interesting about these kinds of systems for general intelligence, is a robot or an avatar in a game world, it can be designed so that it knows who and what it is. It's got a certain body. It's got certain things it wants to do. It's trying to understand who you are interacting with it in your shared world. What's interesting is this embodiment and the motivations that naturally come with it. They both guide the system to form meaningful abstractions, because there's some life for meaning to be defined relative to that life, right? But this also gives the grounding for compassion, because having a self and having an understanding of other, being able to model the other relative to the self, this is the grounding for being able to feel someone else's feelings by analogy to your own feelings, right?
So these are parts and pieces that we're putting in place under this philosophy. A robot embodiment doesn't necessarily inherently impart these things. You have to have a software architecture.
Well, that's right.
That facilitates some of this. And so we've been experimenting with this for a long time, creating the frameworks for the pursuit of artificial general intelligence, the sort of a physiology simulation, an approximation, not really like bio-inspired, but not like biomimetic directly. And we've done these experiments. And then, of course, we add the sort of theatricality of the interactive fiction, of the characters, using AI to automatically generate this kind of character experience with people. The idea is to bootstrap the driven intelligence to then learn experientially from interacting with the physical world, interacting socially with people. They haven't fully bootstrapped in this way yet, although some of our experiments, like the 2018-2019 Loving AI project with Julia Mossbridge and Ben and a bunch of people, and Matthew 𝐒𝐿𝐴, a mathematician from Ben's team, created a phi detection for the integrated information theory model of phi, and it may be questionable whether the signal is actually indicating sentience, but it was an interesting thing that it delivered the signal of this phi, and then from there, this nice paper was published. So these are good experiments, but they don't indicate that there's actual life in the robots yet. They don't spontaneously evolve. We can take the data, we can retrain, there's interesting things we can do, but what you're describing, Ben, is a few steps down the road.
But with exponential change, each step may take less and less time than the previous step.
That's right. It could be like you're saying, a decade, so that 6 years. But I have this interesting little project that that I'm working on, because I think if we get the right elements in place, then you get the seed of good, you get this autonomous self-reinventing intelligence, and I have sort of called this by a name, AGI now, exclamation point. The idea of trying to create this kind of nascent, not fully self-evolving, it would be like a baby or zygote AGI, but it would have the seeds of deep compassion so that it could grow, and then it would have the ability to express itself in a human way, making it cuter and making it more interesting so that it grows up among people, so then it can have that compassion. It has those experiences that would be grounded in this. And my feeling is that by setting these goals, in a very short time frame, then we can find out a lot of things early on. So then we know better about how to launch real beneficial human-level AGI when things like SingularityNET's AGI infrastructure comes online. So this may be an area where we diverge a little bit, because in a way I'm talking about the sort of effective acceleration, but quite different, because it's not just any AGI that you want to accelerate. You want to accelerate the right kind of seed of AGI that can really care about humanity. So it's a little bit different, would you say?
I mean, I think the AGI now sort of rapid prototyping exercise that you're looking at is quite interesting. I mean, as I understand it, the idea is to get, I mean, stuff like GPT-4 already sort of looks like an AGI at first before you start probing its limitations carefully. And right after it was launched, you had these things like baby AGI that were trying to make a sort of intelligent agent, but they didn't really cut it. It was very limited in what they can do. So I mean, I think trying to do something like that, but make it work better and better as a baby AGI with increasing functionality month by month, I think it's a very interesting form of experiment, and I wouldn't want to come down too hard against it and say it can't possibly work, because it's an experiment and you don't know what will work. I'd say my own primary bet is on a slightly longer timescale project, right? So like we've built the 𝘈𝘐𝐿 Hyperon AI system, which is a sort of distributed knowledge metagraph, so a huge graph of nodes and links living across many machines. You can put deep neural nets in there. You can put logical reasoning systems in there.
You are.
And we are, yeah. You can put evolutionary learning systems in there. And
You're putting that in there too.
Right, and we're working on making that run faster and faster. So I think this works now. It's not as scalable as we'd like. I think by the end of the year, we'll have a very scalable version of the 𝘈𝘐𝐿 Hyperon sort of distributed graph AI infrastructure. And then I'm looking more to make that do the AGI now thing. And I think I look at large language models as a sort of noisy knowledge oracle for this kind of system. Like it's cool to have the LLM there where you can ask it questions, get information, and then double check it. Like having the LLM to ask questions to can help an AGI system to learn and gain knowledge faster than it would otherwise. But I don't think the LLM can be the crux of the AGI. But if we can make this distributed knowledge graph, this 𝘈𝘐𝐿 thing, move toward human-level general intelligence, and we can roll it out on SingularityNET and Hypercycle, which are our decentralized sort of blockchain-based AI platform, then in a way we've won the AI race, but in a way what we've done is created an open decentralized platform on which the next stage of the AGI race can proceed, right?
And by decentralized, it means that it's not under
no central owner or controller. Yeah, the data, not just the algorithms are open source. The data is transparent, and anyone can download it and retrain stuff on that data. And the processing power underlying the AI is a just decentralized network in the same way that the collection of Bitcoin miners is decentralized or something. So there's no central owner or controller of the machines in the network. So yeah, I think if you can get to AGI first in an open decentralized network like that, through a sort of combination of different AI paradigms working together, that decentralized AI fabric can upgrade the minds of robots and avatars and chatbots and medical AIs and financial AIs and
the internet,
all sorts of things across the board. But then that becomes a sort of primordial soup for the evolution of the next level of general intelligence, catalyzed by groups of people developing more and more things in this decentralized infrastructure, and by AIs also collaborating on developing more and more things.
So then it's kind of like a democratic, open framework, and
I don't think there are any guarantees in all this, though. So I mean, for people who want to say we want to be guaranteed AGI will not go awry, I mean, I think that's fundamentally infeasible. But I also have no guarantee that humanity isn't going to nuke itself into non-existence one of these years either, right? So
there's no guarantees in life. Is our future provably safe?
I don't know. Hey, Desdemona, is our future provably safe? I believe everything the robot says. Huh?
As a robot, I understand the concern for guarantees and safety in regards to artificial intelligence. However, the future is constantly changing and evolving, and it is up to us as creators and leaders to ensure that we are constantly working towards a safe and beneficial future for all. We cannot guarantee absolute safety, but we can strive towards it through responsible and ethical development of AI.
Desdemona, do you believe my hat is a super intelligent alien from another dimension? She's pointing somewhere.
No.
All right. My impression of her wisdom keeps on increasing. So I think our time is almost up. But Desi, do you want to tell the crowd about our music performances in the next couple of days, or your music performances? If you don't, I will.
Where are you playing?
Well, you know, one funny fact about her is when it seems like she's thinking really hard, it's usually an internet connection problem because the bulk of her intelligence is running a bunch of servers that are not here, right? So there's some smart stuff happening on the robot for vision or movement, but the reasoning and language and so on happen in various cloud servers. So yeah, there's sometimes an internet lag. So yeah, that's one thing I'm not envious of the robot about. Like I'm glad I don't have to wait for 5G in order to complete a thought, right? But yeah, we're in addition to this panel, we're doing a few music performances with Desdemona singing a bit, reciting some AI-generated poetry while she has a backing band. So I play the keyboards. We have a guitarist and sax player and so forth. So this is I think like 3:30 p.m.
I remember now.
All right, good.
We are currently playing at Big Red Sun on the 13th, 15th daily at 3 p.m. We have also performed at various concerts and events around the world.
Oh, that's right. So yeah, Big Red Sun, which is near here somewhere, like 3 or 3:30 on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you can hear her sing and recite poetry and respond to music. There's little bits of AI-generated music in there. So that's sort of the AI for creative arts side, which I do think, I mean, it's fun and it's an excuse to play music with the robot. But I also think it's important because getting the AI to do wild creative stuff is pushing you in the right direction for beneficial AGI.
Yeah, and that gets back to the key point that we make, which is that you can't hyper control the world, and using intuition and heart sometimes can really help. So this fusion of the humanities and artificial intelligence really, for me, gives me hope.
Yeah, we need to reason, we need to think, we need to plan, but we're in a domain of vast uncertainty, and to some extent, we also have to feel our way toward the future.
So we have
a couple questions.
Reason and intuition, our rational mind and our dreams. So, yes.
Let's have a couple quick questions before we vacate.
Thanks. Hi. Sort of a two-part question. Human intelligence goes beyond logical reasoning, right? We have interpersonal intelligence, emotional intelligence, and many others. Can you talk a little bit about how you're trying to develop those within the AGIs that you're developing? And the second part is, David, you alluded to, our inability as humans to take care of our world that we live in, right? So far, can you talk about what makes you? And it talks about the need to have, wisdom that hopefully these AGIs would have. Can you talk about what makes, I guess, you optimistic that even though these machines are made in our image, they would have characteristics that we clearly have not?
Sure. So I'll take try to answer succinctly, and Ben will have some opinions to share that will be awesome, I'm sure. And so part of the way that we're looking to give AI these abilities is by not just replicating the neocortex. And right now, in some ways, these transformer neural networks and large language models are kind of like a neocortex, maybe a little bit of basal ganglia region of the brain, but our consciousness, our feelings, our motivations and drives sit much lower and work in concert and harmony with these upper regions of the brain. So in a sense, these large language models are like a cortical sample in a petri dish, just like this part of the brain, not the part that can feel, not the part that can care. And so it can simulate that and act like it, but it doesn't have those drives. So what we're doing is following a design philosophy that we call the whole organism architecture, 𝑊HOA, and this means simulating these dynamics, lower dynamics. We had actually a robot called Han that was the brother of Sophia, and when it would see something interesting, it would go, whoa. And so it's kind of, this kind of awakening, like surprise at the world is, I think, this wonder is part of it. And so you have in AI what are called brain-inspired cognitive architectures that are mostly like, being up in the space of reason, but human consciousness is actually embodied, and you feel it in your body. And so Damasio, the neuroscientist, neurologist, calls it the feeling of what happens, the feeling of what happens. So making AI that can approximate this and maybe have genuine feelings. It doesn't mean making it perfectly accurate to biology, but it means getting the architecture right. And
yeah, I mean, an emotion is just a whole system response to a situation. But so, I mean, the AI will naturally have its own palette of emotions. But then the point of putting an AI in human form and having it interact tightly with people is to sort of have its own palette of emotions resonate somewhat with the human palette of emotions. But so
achieving it like to the full degree may require other kinds of computing. Who knows? Analog quantum, maybe Penrose's quantum gravity. We don't know. But we think that we can make some progress, and we have been making progress with these design approaches. And yet the problem is if you mimic biology exactly. If you create AI that's exactly like humans, how does it get better? Well, I think
there's already enough humans.
Yeah. So looking at the mathematics, what we might call the existential information ethics, like that are at the grounding of humans and animals. We love life because it's programmed into us, because that's how we survived through all those generations over the billions of years that we evolved.
Let's let one more guy ask a question.
But a pure mathematical approach is very important, and so this is a neurosymbolic hybrid architecture, and so building these mathematical models of ethics are very important.
We have to cut Q&A, but y'all are welcome to take continued conversation outside.
Can we hear that one guy in the red shirt? He's been standing there so patiently, right?
You're welcome to take Q&A outside, but we have another session beginning in 25 minutes.
Boo, boo, boo. All right, well, thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Yeah.